If you ask anyone who is the richest person in the world, everyone will point fingers at Jeff Bezos. But the truth is, if you take a look at their investment portfolios, Bill Gates is still significantly wealthier than Bezos. And that's not going to change anytime soon. Bill Gates will remain the richest man in the world. Before you throw at me your angry comments, hear me out. Gates first joined the Forbes billionaire list in 1987 when he was just 32 years old. But he wasn't going to stay there for long. In the next few years, he climbed to the top of the list, and in 1995, he became the world's wealthiest person. And he held that title until 2017, except 4 of these years when Warren Buffett and Carlos Slim exceeded him. Most people think that Gates' wealth comes from Microsoft, which is not true. Yes, he founded the company with Paul Allen and was the CEO, but in 2000s, he left his position and handed his job to Steve Ballmer at the peak of the dot-com bubble. As a smart investor, Gates knew that he couldn't keep all of his eggs in one basket and has to diversify, even though Microsoft turned out to be way more valuable than anyone could have imagined back then. So before the dot-com bubble burst, Gates sold most of his Microsoft stocks. It seems like he was predicting the crash as some of the other entrepreneurs back then, like Mark Cuban. Today, he owns only 1.3% of the company and is still the largest individual investor. That tiny percentage equals to almost $20 billion. But wait for a second, isn't Bill Gates worth over $105 billion? Yes, and that's what makes him different from his fellow tech billionaires. To find out why Bill Gates is still the richest person in the world, we have to take a deep look into his investing portfolio. One of his biggest and best positions is in Berkshire Hathaway. He owns at least 54 million shares of the company, which amounts to around $11.2 billion. Berkshire Hathaway is unlike any other company. It's a holding company that invests in multiple different companies such as Apple, Bank of America, IBM, General Motors, Goldman Sachs, and owns entire other companies like Geico or Duracell. These companies are not from one particular industry, so if one of them goes down, others would probably compensate. And remember that these companies weren't randomly picked, but by the greatest investor of our time, Warren Buffett, since he manages Berkshire Hathaway. Gates also owns 18.6 million shares of Waste Management Inc., which amounts to around $2 billion. The company dates back to 1968 and offers environmental services to nearly 21 residential, industrial, municipal, and commercial customers in the US, Canada, and Puerto Rico. With 26,000 collection and transfer vehicles, the company has the largest trucking fleet in the waste industry. Over the last 5 years, the stock price grew by 113%. That's really a lot considering that it also paid a 2% dividend yield throughout these years. It makes it one of the best investments one can make, and since it provides essential services, it's a safe long-term investment. Gates is also an investor in the Canadian National Railway Company. He owns 17.1 million shares with a market value of around $2 billion. It's Canada's largest railway in terms of both revenue and the physical size of its rail network, spanning Canada from the Atlantic coast in Nova Scotia to the Pacific coast in British Columbia, across about 20,400 route miles. It's a public company that employs 24,000 people. And as of October 2020, it has a market cap of approximately 104 billion Canadian dollars. And surprisingly, the company handled the current crisis pretty well. The stock plummeted because of the pandemic back in March, but the company quickly regained its position and is now 30% higher than its pre-pandemic level. Bill Gates loved dividend stocks, and the Canadian National Railway is such a company with a dividend yield of 1.7%. Gates also holds $1.5 billion worth of Caterpillar Inc., It designs, develops, engineers, manufactures, markets, and sells machinery, engines, financial products, and insurance to customers via a worldwide dealer network. It's the world's largest construction equipment manufacturer. It's traded in the New York Stock Exchange at over $90 billion market cap. I think by now you get the picture. Bill Gates has invested in a wide variety of safe, stable, and prominent companies to keep his wealth increasing year after year. He also holds $1.5 billion of Walmart stocks and many other companies. It makes him immune to crises and volatility and lets his wealth keep growing exponentially in the long run. So even if Microsoft goes bankrupt tomorrow or the US economy falls into a long-lasting depression, Gates' investments are all over the world, which makes him safe from any turmoil. That's why he has been the richest man in the world for 18 years. You also have to take into account that Gates has donated around $30 billion to different causes, from fighting malaria to solving sanitation problems in Africa to investing billions into companies that are working on a vaccine for COVID-19. If you take a look at his fellow billionaire Jeff Bezos, things are different. Of course, he's significantly wealthier with $185 billion, but most of his wealth is tied to Amazon. So if Amazon falls for one reason or another, his wealth will follow up. But Bezos is smart, and he perfectly understands that. That's why he's slowly selling his stake in Amazon and investing them in different companies and industries. In 2019, he sold $2.8 billion worth of Amazon stocks. This year so far, he has sold $7.2 billion, and that's not by accident. The pandemic pushed many investors to invest heavily in the stock market since tech companies proved to be immune to this crisis, especially when the Fed stepped in and injected hundreds of billions of dollars into the market, which pushed technology stocks, including Amazon, to skyrocket. It's difficult to predict the future of Amazon because the stock market is overvalued, but at the same time, Amazon is going to play a vital role in distributing the vaccine since it has been building its delivery fleet for over 2 decades. Bezos has invested a huge chunk of his cash into Blue Origin, an aerospace manufacturer that's trying to build reusable rockets to make space exploration more affordable. The company has made good progress. Bezos pledged to invest $1 billion into this company every year. It's difficult to find an exact valuation of this company since it's a private company, but it's probably worth billions. However, we'll be able to know the exact number if the company decides to go public. Bezos also purchased the Washington Post for $250 million and holds a 3% stake in the popular business news website Business Insider. Having a few media companies can give you some positive press. He also invested in multiple other companies like ZocDoc or Nextdoor, platforms that connect people. He has also invested $112 million in Airbnb, $37 million in Uber, so if one day Uber becomes profitable, Bezos is going to take a portion of that. He's also a big believer in the cloud business, so he has invested in companies such as Workday Inc. He's also a real estate investor. His 165,000-acre core ranch in Texas was acquired as the base of operations for his aerospace company Blue Origin and serves as the test site for the vertical landing manned suborbital New Shepard rocket. Besides that, he owns houses across the country from Beverly Hills to a 10,000 square foot apartment in Century Tower in Manhattan that he has paid over $8 million. He also has a house in Washington, D.C. where he spent $28 million. In short, Bezos is rich, but over 95% of his wealth comes from Amazon. Over the next decade, Bezos will keep selling billions of dollars worth of his Amazon stocks and invest in a wide variety of industries, exactly as Gates did. If Gates didn't sell his Microsoft stake, he would worth a lot more, since in 1986, when Microsoft went public, Gates owned 49% of the company. Of course, after 9 stock splits, his share would have been diluted anyways, but regardless, he would own a significant chunk of Microsoft. And since Microsoft is valued at $1.6 trillion, he would be as wealthy, if not wealthier, than Bezos. The future is unpredictable, and it's far better to have a well-diversified portfolio than having all of your wealth tied to one company. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. That will really help the video to get promoted, and subscribe for more similar videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time.